Hello, everybody. Welcome to All Villa No Filler. Please like and subscribe. If you don't subscribe, you don't want Aston Villa to win the FA Cup. If you subscribe, if you click that subscribe button, you want Aston Villa to win the FA Cup. And my goodness, wouldn't I like us to win it? Because do you know what? It's something that's haunted me for many, many years. Many years, the FA Cup, because I went to the FA Cup final in 2000, the last one at the old Wembley. I have great memories of the old Wembley. Perhaps my greatest memory in life. One of them was in 1994 when Villa beat Manchester United 3-1 in the Coca-Cola Cup final. An unlikely win, an incredible win for Ron Atkinson's side. I was there right at the top of the stand, just right opposite end of where Dean Saunders scored the third goal, the penalty. But I was also at the final in 2000 when, after an epic run to the final, to be honest, Benito Carboni's hat trick against Leeds been a real standout moment, and the penalty shootout win over Bolton in the semi-final. Unfortunately, in the final, Villa did not show up. I can't remember us having a single shot on goal. And that wasn't a great Chelsea team. It was an interesting one when you look back on it. George Weah played for them, actually, came off the bench. The great George Weah, now president of Liberia, I think. And John Terry, a young John Terry, I think, played alongside Marcel Desailly. But it was Roberto Di Matteo, the man who managed us for 12, 13 games. He was the man who got the winner after David James dropped the ball. And that, I will never forget sitting there, and I was kind of like in this weird mixed zone of Chelsea and Villa fans. But I remember looking off into the distance, such a gut punch, and it wasn't a feeling I'd felt until that time a girl said, "You're not the one for me," and I just stared off into the distance. Just, but doesn't she find it interesting that I talk about Aston Villa 24/7? Isn't that really attractive? Doesn't she want to hear about the stats of Villa's goals against and goals for of the 2012-2013 season? So that was a mystery why she dumped me. But just like Villa got dumped out of the FA Cup final in 2000, and look what I got. Does anybody else have this? Comment below, please. I still have the memento of that was left there for the final FA Cup game in 2000, Chelsea Villa. It was on all the seats. I'm sure lots of people who were there that day have still kept theirs. I still have mine. It's been hanging on a door for 23 and a half years, and it's still in pretty good condition, to be honest with you. It says presented with compliments to the Football Association to commemorate the last FA Cup final at the original Wembley Stadium, 20th of May 2000. There we go. And you know what? When I kept this, I thought one day this will be worth a lot of money and I'll probably be able to retire off this. This is my retirement fund right here. A friend of mine from the London Lions Villa Group posted in there recently saying they still had theirs, looked on Etsy, and you know what this was selling for? About £4. So my retirement plans are currently in trouble and I need to rethink things. Um, I mean, £4. I mean, in fairness, it's a half a pint in London, in most places now. Went back to Birmingham and Solihull recently, and I was like, how expensive are all the beers here? Unbelievable. Marjorie, it tastes like piss, mate, and it £7. God, yeah, sounded a bit Mark Goldbridge then. Anyway, there we go. So I've still got this. Um, Let me know below if you've still got yours. But look, I would love it if the younger Villa fans could experience the FA Cup final. You know, I guess we were there in 2015 as well. A final we should definitely forget about. After, yeah, we didn't have a shot on target in a 4-0 loss to Arsenal. That was a horrendous game. A friend of mine flew back from Hong Kong for that, for one day to watch that final, and then had to fly back for work the day after. That is amazing commitment to being a Villa fan. And what a sad way for that final to go for him. But look, uh, tomorrow it's Middlesbrough Now, Villa's record in third rounds of the FA Cup in recent years have not been good. In fact, it has been absolutely laughably abysmal. And when I think about nostalgia for the FA Cup, one day perhaps I'll nostalgically be telling my grandkids about watching Aston Villa go out in the third round of the FA Cup 7 years in a row. The lowest point being to Stevenage at home in a game where the players couldn't be bloody bothered. Um, and but then it ended. But then it ended when we finally defeated Middlesbrough away in January of 2024. I am very, very hopeful that that will happen. So let's take a look at Middlesbrough. Well, they're managed by Michael Carrick. Carrick, who did very well with them last season with two loan players, obviously from Villa, Cameron Archer and Aaron Ramsey, who've now gone into the Premier League. Chuba Akpom as well, who's gone to Ajax. So they've lost those players, and it has been tough for Middlesbrough to react to that at the start of the season. But it looks like they've got they had a pretty terrible start, but it looks like they've got their act together, and they have climbed back up the table. They're now in 12th place in the Championship, and they've got 3 wins in their last 5, and 6th place Sunderland are on 40 points, Middlesbrough in 12th and 36. So wouldn't write off Middlesbrough if they can go on a bit of a run. Playoffs are there, as Aston Villa showed a couple of years ago. If you go on a good run, then playoffs can be done. But Middlesbrough lost to another team that are in good form in recent times, another team that started poorly, and were actually my tips for Dark Horse to go up, even though they lost in the playoff final last year. They were Coventry City, another team who lost key players at the start of the season. Took time to react to that, but are getting their act together. And Coventry, keep an eye on them. They might just work their way into the playoffs because they're now up in 8th. And anyway, look, they went up to Middlesbrough, went 1-0 down, and Coventry came back and won 3-1. Now, I watched the highlights of it, and something I did notice is that Middlesbrough like to play it out from the back. They can go from back to front very quickly. But the thing is, when Coventry started to press them in the second half, Coventry got a little bit narrower, bunged up the middle of the pitch. Middlesbrough struggled to play out, and also Middlesbrough had a bit of a problem in that they have a lot of injuries. And so with those injuries, their squad is somewhat threadbare. It's not too easy for them to cope with that. And I think that against Coventry, what may have happened is that in the second half, with a threadbare squad playing a lot of games recently, they got tired. And so that's what happened with Aston Villa, I think, towards the end of December, is that we played a lot of games. And I think that the Sheffield United, Manchester United, and Burnley games, in all of them, I think we played a lot of the same players as we had done throughout December, which included a trip to Bosnia in the middle. And I just think the Villa looked a little bit like we were missing a few key players, which we were. Kamara, Torres, Buendia, obviously, Mings, obviously. Kellyman, another one who we're missing. Various others as well. It just kind of felt a little bit like Villa at the end were just a little bit on fumes and needed a good break and a healthier run of games. So this month we've only got 3 games, really. We've got Middlesbrough, Everton, and Newcastle. So that's bearable. And, Middlesbrough. Well, it's interesting. How are they going to line up? Because on Tuesday night, they're playing Chelsea in the semi-final of the EFL Cup. You would think that would be more of a focus for them, particularly as it's the home game where if they're going to get a win, that's probably where they want to get it. Will they rotate for Villa? I wouldn't be surprised if they did. It's a big ask to take on Villa and Chelsea 3 days apart, particularly when the Chelsea game is the one where you think that's a big opportunity, isn't it? And they're more likely to reach the EFL Cup final than they are to get all the way to the FA Cup final, though. Don't write them off. Teams can do it, as Millwall showed in 2005. So with Middlesbrough, it's hard to not think that they'll have one eye on Chelsea on Tuesday night, but at the same time, maybe they will look at Aston Villa as a big scalp now. And let's face it, Villa are a big scalp at this moment in time. We're second in the Premier League. We very much should see ourselves as a team that, if a championship team plays against us, they will want to beat Aston Villa and use that as momentum to then move on at the head of the season. And maybe they'll want to see themselves beating Aston Villa or really giving Aston Villa a hard game, and then thinking, well, look what we did to Aston Villa. Look at where Chelsea are in the Premier League. Why can't we go and do something against them? So yeah, do not underestimate Middlesbrough whatsoever. Away from home as well, the atmosphere, you think it'll be quite a bit louder. They'll be very up for it. Prime time slot as well on TV. With Villa, interesting. Um, it's a bit of a quandary for Villa, isn't it? Because on the one hand, you think we've played a lot of games. We're riding high in the Premier League. Champions League qualification is a real possibility this season. Do we want to have a run in the FA Cup with the squad that we have? I would say yes, and I think that we should go for it. Though I think we should probably give a rest to somebody like an Ollie Watkins and use him as a substitute, and maybe do what we did in quite a few Conference League games where we might start with a Duran and maybe a Zaniolo out on the right, or Zaniolo playing off him. Just because give players more playing time, like say to somebody like a Duran, you've shown you can do it at moments in the Premier League. Show me you can do it for 90 minutes in at a tough away day at Middlesbrough. The same with Zaniolo. He's come to life recently with Villa. He got his first goal in Europe, and he got his first goal in the Premier League as well against Sheffield United, and shown better form recently. So, again, go out and take hold. This is a game where you can take control. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but again, at the same time, it's like Villa don't. It feels like a squad's been a little bit depleted recently. So do we have the players to rotate too much? Take, for instance, what Professor Unai said today. Pau Torres, Luca Dean, Bertrand Traore, Yuri Tielemans, and Robin Olsen are all injured. Torres, I'd like to think hopefully that's not too serious. We did see him come back from injury against Burnley. I'm hoping that's just one where Emery has said that we're going to give him more time to recover and get fully fit for the Everton game, not risk anything. Obviously, we know about Dean. He's out for another couple of weeks. Traore is off to Burkina Faso to represent them in the AFCON. Yuri Tielemans, bit of a mystery, that one. He was out for a few weeks, and that was said a few weeks ago. So hopefully he's back in time for Everton. And then Robin Olsen as well is unavailable. So you'd think Emi Martinez will be starting tomorrow. Hopefully no injuries. But as I say, I think Coventry showed that Middlesbrough perhaps can tire in the second half, or have done recently. And that if you bung up the middle, maybe they struggle to play it out from the back. And as I say, if they're going to play that style tomorrow against Villa, we just have to keep putting pressure on them. When they try to play it at the back and force them into mistakes. It'll be interesting to see how much we cope with Villa's high line. But it's a challenge for us, and I'm sure Emery will want to approach this game and get the win. And I hope we do. We have to end this ridiculous run we've got in the FA Cup. It's absolutely farcically bad, to be honest. So yeah, bring it on. Otherwise, that's about it, really. I mean, let me know what you think about the FA Cup game tomorrow. Do let me know about this. I've had some fans saying it's the one trophy you'd love to see lifted. Let me know as well what trophy you'd like to see lifted from for Villa. For me, I think the FA Cup. So let me think about it. If you could say, right, realistically, in the next 3 years, what trophy you would want Aston Villa to win, I think we'd want to win the Champions League and the Premier League, obviously. The realistic truth of that is that Real Madrid, Man City, Liverpool are going to win the Champions League trophies, and the Premier League as well is probably going to be Man City. That's what we're dealing with. That's not to say that I don't think Villa can keep going this season and push for the Premier League trophy, but obviously it's going to be very hard. But like I say, Tottenham made a Champions League final, and people would have laughed at them for that 10 years ago if they'd ever suggested it. So again, dare to dream that Villa can do these things. But I think trophy-wise, I mean, if Villa were to win the FA Cup and or say the Europa League, those two trophies to me, oh my goodness, that would be massive, wouldn't it? Be such a statement. I mean, the FA Cup, it doesn't quite have the nostalgia and the glamour of recent years or what it used to. It's not quite the cultural event it felt like it used to be. But um, I still think it is a massive, massive trophy. And I think most Villa fans agree with that. I would absolutely love to see Aston Villa win the FA Cup. It'd just be epic. And again, it would say Aston Villa are a club who win things. It builds momentum. So, and again, Europa League, I think, teams like Atletico Madrid have won that quite a bit in recent years. Sevilla, Villarreal under Unai Emery. Emery's been there and done it in that trophy. Been there, done it, won it in that trophy, in that competition. So why can't Aston Villa dare to dream we could do similar? But we're aiming for the Champions League, and he got Villarreal to a semi-final just 2 seasons ago, beating Bayern Munich along the way. So dare to dream what Aston Villa can do. Seriously, dare to dream it. But aside from that, what else is there to talk about? There's been a few links, transfer links. I'll look to talk to a few people about that. I don't want to get in too heavily about that because some of them might be quite spurious links. So I tend to just want to talk about stuff that is likely to happen. But the Felipe Anderson link is at Lazio, former West Ham player. That came from Sky, so that's a strong source. I will look to try and speak to somebody about that. Just because it's an intriguing one. And he does sort of strike me as a bit of an Emery player. He's over 30. I've been quite critical of the signings of older players in recent years. Danny Ings been one. I think the Luca Dean deal, Diego Carlos even. That might be a bit of a controversial view right now. I'm not saying they're not playing well, but I think that signing players a bit older on long contracts, big wages, without much resale value isn't always the best option for me. But with Felipe Anderson, I think that could be an intriguing one indeed. He's done a lot better in Italy than he did at West Ham or in his latter part of his time at West Ham. So yeah, one to keep an eye on there, I think. It does seem like a serious source, and like I say, he does seem like a sort of Emery player, and I could imagine him in like a playing off a Watkins, say, maybe even playing as a striker, and just having that ability to unlock a defense, a bit of a playmaker. So, yeah, do we have a player of that profile? You'd think the Zaniolo could be there, but he's taken time to get going at Villa, really, and he's only on loan. And Buendia has that in him, but he's obviously injured. So yeah, one to keep an eye on Anderson. Like I said, I'm not going to go too deep in it because I don't know massively about how he's done, though I do know he has done well in Italy at Lazio. So one I'll look to try and get somebody on to talk about. Let me know what you think. Please like and subscribe. Up the mighty Villa.